Burkina Faso just made a bold move that's sending shockwaves through West Africa, and the world is watching closely. In a historic shift, the country has awarded a major gold mining license to Russian giant Nordgold, deepening ties with Moscow, and stepping away from traditional Western partners. With gold prices soaring, this deal could change the economic future of Burkina Faso forever. But not everyone is celebrating. In today's video, we're diving deep into the politics, the gold rush, and what it means for the people on the ground. Stick around. You don't want to miss this. The problem. Burkina Faso, a landlocked nation in West Africa, finds itself standing at a critical crossroads. For almost a decade, this country has been battling a relentless wave of insecurity. Since 2015, insurgent groups tied to Al-Qaeda and ISIS have unleashed a brutal campaign of violence, pushing Burkina Faso into a deep crisis. The toll has been staggering. Over 2 million people have been displaced from their homes, forced to flee violence that shows little sign of stopping. The country's economy, once showing signs of modest growth, has been battered. Businesses have shuttered, communities have been torn apart, and the once vibrant rural economy is struggling to survive under constant threat. Now, layer onto that another major vulnerability. Burkina Faso's economy is heavily dependent on a single commodity: gold. According to the World Bank, gold represents about 70% of the country's total exports. It's the golden lifeline of the nation, but it's also a dangerous one. Much of this mining has been chaotic and underregulated. Small-scale artisanal miners work alongside large industrial operations, often clashing over resources. Corruption, mismanagement, and environmental degradation have been persistent problems. Rather than stabilizing the economy, gold has, at times, exacerbated divisions and fueled resentment. Meanwhile, traditional Western allies, especially France and the United States, are seeing their influence wane. Popular anger over their perceived failures, particularly the inability to stop jihadist attacks, has triggered a surge of anti-Western sentiment. Burkina Faso citizens, exhausted and desperate for change, demanded a new path. That frustration exploded onto the political scene in 2022 with a series of military coups. Civilian governments were ousted. A new leadership emerged, promising to restore security, reclaim national dignity, and reforge Burkina Faso's destiny. But promises alone don't build roads, create jobs, or keep insurgents at bay. The new leaders needed resources, they needed revenues, they needed a plan. And so, faced with an urgent economic and security crisis, Burkina Faso's transitional government made a bold and controversial move, granting Nordgold the Niou gold project. In a high-stakes decision, Burkina Faso awarded a major mining license to Nordgold, a Russian-owned mining giant. The license? The development rights to the Niou gold project, a massive deposit of untapped potential located in the Plateau Central region, specifically in Corweogo province. Covering approximately 52.8 square kilometers, the Niou site isn't just another hole in the ground. It's a treasure trove. Early projections suggest that over its 8-year operational lifespan, the mine could produce roughly 20.22 metric tons of gold. To put it in global terms, that's around 650,000 ounces. An extremely valuable haul given today's soaring gold prices. The strategic timing is no accident. Gold prices have climbed over 25% in the past year, fueled by widespread global uncertainty, trade disruptions, and fears of economic slowdown. As of early 2024, gold is holding steady around $2,000 per ounce, near historic highs. Burkina Faso's leadership is hoping to ride this wave. By tapping into the Niou deposit now, they can maximize revenues, shore up government finances, and invest in much-needed infrastructure and security. But there's something much deeper happening here. The awarding of the Niou gold project to Nordgold isn't just about money. It's about power, alliances, and Burkina Faso's place in a rapidly changing world order. Why this move matters so much. For most of the 20th and early 21st centuries, France was the dominant external power in Burkina Faso. French troops, French businesses, and French political advisors, they were everywhere. For many Burkinabe, France was both protector and oppressor. But that relationship has soured dramatically. Frustration over France's failure to contain jihadist violence, mixed with anger over lingering neo-colonial attitudes, has sparked a major shift in public opinion. Today, many Burkinabe no longer look to Paris for solutions. They are looking east, to Moscow. Awarding Nordgold the Niou license is a giant signal to the world. Burkina Faso is moving away from its traditional Western patrons and forging closer ties with Russia. And Burkina Faso isn't alone. Across the Sahel, we are seeing a seismic realignment. Mali has kicked out French forces and signed security deals with Russia. Niger's recent coup leaders also hinted at a possible shift away from France and towards new alliances. In Burkina Faso, the symbolism couldn't be clearer. Nordgold isn't just any company, it's closely connected to Russian financial elites with deep ties to the Kremlin. Allowing Nordgold to control a major gold asset locks Burkina Faso deeper into Russia's orbit, economically, politically, and perhaps militarily. In short, the Niou gold project isn't just about extracting precious metal from the earth. It's about extracting Burkina Faso from the old world order and planting it firmly into a new one. Breaking down the deal, key details you should know. Now, let's zoom in on some important details about the Niou gold project. Firstly, the ownership structure. Under Burkina Faso's recently revised mining laws, Gilby Burkina, now fully controlled by Nordgold, retains 85% ownership of the project. The Burkinabe government owns the remaining 15%, and notably, they won't have to provide any upfront financial investment for their stake. It's a no-risk, no-cost deal for the government, at least in terms of initial capital. Let's talk about financial contributions. Over the 8 years of the mine's expected operation, it's projected to inject roughly 51.5 billion CFA francs, which is about $89 million directly into Burkina Faso's national budget. Plus, an additional 7.06 billion CFA francs will be funneled into the country's Mineral Wealth Fund, a resource pool designed to finance long-term development projects. Also, the mine is expected to create around 204 direct jobs. But the impact doesn't stop there. By boosting nearby operations, such as Nordgold's existing Bisa Gold SA mine, the project could generate hundreds of indirect jobs, supporting local economies in mining zones. Apart from that, we have infrastructure development. Large mining projects typically spur investments in local roads, water systems, and electricity. Vital improvements that can benefit surrounding communities, provided they are well managed. In a country where the poverty rate hovers around 40%, these potential benefits are no small matter. They could make a real difference if delivered properly. However, it's not all good news. The area targeted by the Niou gold project isn't an untouched wilderness. It's home to thousands of artisanal miners, men and women who work small plots of land with simple tools, scraping out a living one dusty nugget at a time. According to a 2023 SwissEd report, artisanal mining accounted for a major share of Burkina Faso's roughly 57 tons of gold production that year. These miners aren't getting rich, but they're surviving and supporting entire families and communities. In the process, the arrival of a massive industrial mining operation threatens to uproot this delicate ecosystem. As Ulf Lessing, head of the Sahel program at Germany's Konrad Adenauer Foundation, put it, large-scale mining brings in tax revenue but can strip away traditional livelihoods, displacing artisanal miners without offering viable alternatives, risks creating new flashpoints for unrest. In a nation already racked by violence, that's a dangerous gamble. This tension between national economic interests and grassroots survival is at the heart of Burkina Faso's development challenge. While the Niou gold project promises economic benefits, it also exposes Burkina Faso to serious political and social risks. The government's decision to favor a Russian company could deepen existing tensions, both domestically and internationally. Internally, there's concern that local communities will bear the brunt of these decisions without seeing enough benefits. Displaced artisanal miners, landowners, and surrounding villages might feel abandoned if they don't receive fair compensation or development opportunities. Internationally, Burkina Faso risks alienating traditional Western partners who have historically provided security assistance, humanitarian aid, and trade partnerships. Essentially, Burkina Faso is walking a tightrope, trying to assert national sovereignty while avoiding isolation or backlash from powerful allies it may still need. If the government cannot manage these tensions wisely, the situation could escalate into protests, unrest, or even sabotage of mining operations, all of which would jeopardize the success of the Niou project and broader economic recovery efforts. Russia's growing footprint in Africa. In recent years, Russia has steadily expanded its influence across Africa through a combination of military aid, political alliances, and economic investments, especially targeting resource-rich countries. Companies like Nordgold and private military groups such as Wagner offer African nations an alternative to Western partnerships. The appeal is clear: less political lecturing, faster military support, and promises of economic cooperation without the heavy pressure for democratic reforms. Russia has already cemented its presence in countries like Mali, Sudan, and the Central African Republic. Now, with the Niou project, Burkina Faso is moving down a similar path. This alignment with Moscow could have significant long-term consequences, not only for Burkina Faso, but for the entire West African region, reshaping alliances, investment flows, and the broader balance of power. Another looming obstacle is the ongoing jihadist insurgency. Since 2015, Burkina Faso has struggled to contain violent extremist groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. These insurgents often view mining operations, especially foreign ladones, as prime targets. Mines represent a symbol of government authority and foreign involvement, making them attractive for attacks, kidnappings, and sabotage. The Niou gold project, given its high-profile nature and Russian ties, will likely be a major target. To protect the site, the government will need to deploy substantial security forces at a time when its military is already overstretched and underfunded. Moreover, Nordgold may also have to hire private security contractors, some potentially with ties to Russian paramilitary outfits, to safeguard operations. This added layer of militarization could inflame local tensions even further if not carefully managed, creating a vicious cycle of violence and repression. Environmental and social concerns. Beyond security and politics, environmental degradation remains a major threat. Industrial gold mining causes deforestation, water pollution, and biodiversity loss. In a country already battling desertification and climate change, this could be disastrous. Local communities that depend on farming and grazing face severe risks. Although the government promises strict regulations for Nordgold, weak enforcement raises concerns. Building trust demands real environmental assessments, genuine consultations, and strict monitoring, not just empty promises. Economic prospects. Economic prospects. The Niou gold project could be a major boost in purely financial terms. The estimated 20.22 metric tons of gold could inject hundreds of millions of dollars into the economy, strengthen the Burkina franc, and fund critical infrastructure projects like schools, roads, and hospitals. But there's a deeper question. Will these benefits be distributed equitably? Burkina Faso's history with mining suggests caution. Past projects have often enriched political elites and foreign corporations while leaving ordinary citizens behind. Without strong governance, transparency, and anti-corruption measures, there's a real risk that the wealth generated by Niou will evaporate into private pockets rather than lifting the nation out of poverty. In short, gold wealth alone won't save Burkina Faso. It must be managed wisely to truly transform the country's future. Lessons from neighboring countries. Looking around West Africa offers important lessons. In Mali, the rush to develop. Gold resources brought short-term revenue but fueled corruption and widened inequality, contributing to political instability. In Ghana, by contrast, a more stable regulatory environment and investments in community development have helped gold mining become a foundation for broader economic progress. Burkina Faso stands at a crossroads. Will it repeat Mali's mistakes or chart a more sustainable, inclusive path like Ghana? The answer will depend largely on how the government manages the Niou project. From environmental protections and community engagement to fair revenue sharing and anti-corruption enforcement. Looking ahead, several possible futures are emerging. For Burkina Faso, the Niou gold project holds significant potential for Burkina Faso, with the best-case scenario seeing the project boost state revenues, stabilize the economy, and create job opportunities. If successful, it could enhance national sovereignty and position the country as a model for resource-driven development in West Africa. In a moderate scenario, the mine faces sporadic attacks, high security costs, and growing community discontent. While some economic gains are realized, issues like corruption and inequality persist, and political instability remains a challenge. In the worst-case scenario, violence escalates, insurgent attacks increase, and community unrest over displacement. And environmental harm deepens. Corruption worsens, plunging Burkina Faso into further conflict and economic decline. The path the country takes will be shaped by crucial decisions made in boardrooms, government offices, and local communities. At its core, the story of the Niou gold project is about much more than gold. It's about a nation grappling with its identity, sovereignty, and future direction. Will Burkina Faso harness its natural resources to build a better future for all its citizens? Or will it fall into the familiar traps of exploitation, inequality, and conflict? The world is watching. And for Burkina Faso, the stakes could not be higher.